Hello everyone, Carnasa here, and welcome back to Coming Home. So at the start of this episode, we are going to be joining Kerbin 2, because it has finally made its way over to Hydrus, our second planet that we have reached with Kerbal kind in this series. And this actually is the main mission for the Kerbin class interplanetary spacecraft that we have designed. So we went to Skaith in the last episode, and the Kerbin class craft was never designed to go there. It just so happened that we had a Skaith transfer window open up, and I decided, well, we might as well send a mission over because we've got the transfer window up. But the Kerbin class interplanetary spacecraft, no, it was indeed designed to land on Hydrus, to return from the surface of Hydrus, and then also to go over to Hydron, and then land on the surface of Hydron, and then come back from the surface of Hydron. So this mission is designed for this planet. What we're doing right now is we are going to be performing a bit of an inclination change whilst we still have a highly elliptical orbit. Now the reason why we're doing that then is because it doesn't take as much delta V when our ascending node or descending node, I can't remember which one it was that we actually performed this maneuver at. Well, if we perform that when we're not in a rather low position in our orbit, well, the inclination change is going to be a lot cheaper in terms of delta V, which is why we've done it then. But now what we are doing is we are going to bring our orbit down nice and low so that when we release that lander, well, it's going to be a lot easier for us to land that on the surface. We are, of course, going to be using Hydrus's gravity and atmosphere to do most of the slowing down for us. I mean, just the atmosphere. I don't know why I said gravity then, but yes, no. We are going to be using Hydrus's atmosphere to do most of the slowing down for us, if pretty much, in fact, all of the slowing down for us. What I've done now is I have actually grabbed up the biome map because I want to try and land as close to the lakes as possible while still being in the lowlands. Now, the reason why that is, well, we get 2 biomes that we can go and visit. And of course, with 2 biomes, we are going to be getting a lot more science rather than just going to 1. So we have now entered the rather thick atmosphere of Hydrus, and well, we will fill that pulling on our spacecraft relatively soon. What we are going to be doing is we are going to be getting up all of our atmospheric analysis kind of experiments. We're going to be running them as we come down to try and gain as much science as we possibly can from this mission. So I do seem to be running out of science that I'm gaining in this save at a rather alarming rate, so we are going to try and gain all that we can from this. There we go, we have touched down rather dangerously. So now that we have touched down on the surface of Hydrus, it is of course time to get our astronauts out and about and walking on the surface of this rather unfamiliar world. Whilst, well, just a little bit before we are going to be running all of the experiments that we do have on this spacecraft. So I was suffering a bit of a weird bug with the USI tourist kind of feature when we had land on the surface of Hydrus. So only one of our astronauts was technically able to do anything. However, as soon as we got our first astronaut out, so Oliver Kerman is the first Kerbal to step foot on Hydrus, I may add as well, that meant that one of our other Kerbals in the spacecraft no longer became a tourist, and Errol Kerman suffered a bit of a dodgy neck on leaving that spacecraft. That does not look very good, but he seems to be rather happy. He has stood up and he is raring to go. He is raring to continue. A little bit strange, but anyway, once we got one of our astronauts out, we were able to bring the next one out. The tourism thing kind of just magically vanished. I'm not entirely sure what was causing that, and if it was kind of like a weird feature of USI that was allowing me to do that, but yeah, it meant that we could get all 3 of the astronauts out on the surface of Hydrus. Now what we're going to be doing is we are going to grab Ziggy Kerman II, and we are going to go on a bit of a hike over towards that lake biome. Like I said, we want to try and really abuse Hydrus for all of the science that we can possibly get from it, and that's exactly what we're going to do. Well, you can see over a kilometer away, we have indeed made it to the lakes. This was a really long run. You can see it's almost taken us 20 minutes to actually get out here. But we are going to make Ziggy run all of the surface analysis that we need him to run. And then it is just another really long run back to the spacecraft, going at about 1 meter per second. Yes, it's 1,000 meters, so it's a long time. Now, unfortunately, something a bit bizarre did happen. Yes, the ground decided to swallow up Ziggy Kerbin II whole. I have already killed Ziggy Kerbin once in this series, which is why he is Ziggy Kerbin II. I am more than willing to bring him back from the dead for that reason, because that was just a bit of a crackeny glitch where he glitched into the ground. If people think I should bring him back again for a second time, because that was, well, to be quite frank, a really unfortunate way of dying, well, let me know in the comments and I will bring him back, because I think that was a bit unfair how he died there. But obviously, having seen something incredibly bizarre, they witnessed something strange and mysterious happening to their crewmates. Errol Kerbin and Oliver Kerbin get back in the lander, and they are going to hightail their way over to space to try and get away from this cursed planet, because that is indeed what it is. There are floating rocks everywhere. It's not due to the magnetic field that those rocks are floating. No, it's some kind of magical, mystical curse that is holding those rocks. And we did actually get a bit of a brief glimpse at those floating rocks as we were ascending there. We didn't really see them because those floating rocks are in the biome, the floaty lands, and obviously we landed in the lowlands and the lakes, so we were a little bit too far to see that magnificent sight until we actually started our ascent to meet up with the mothership. I did run some atmospheric analysis on Hydrus as well whilst we were there, and it turns out the vast majority of the atmosphere is made up of carbon dioxide, so it is very similar to Venus, I guess, this planet. It is quite close to the center of the Tempest system, having only got Fury closer. So yeah, probably the best analogy of this planet would be Venus, or even Eve in the regular stock KSP, although the atmosphere isn't quite as dense or quite as hard to land on as it is with Eve, or so I'm led to believe. I've never actually done a Eve landing and return. That's something that I have to kind of tick off my list of things to do, and I probably will eventually try and do something like that eventually, but maybe when I'm not playing super heavily modded installs. Anyway, we have now grabbed the mothership and we have made our way over to Hydron. Originally, I was just going to use the lander for this transfer, although I thought using those 4 Lanta engines on the back of this interplanetary craft, they are NTRs, so they are going to be incredibly efficient at what they do. I mean, their vacuum ISP, their vacuum specific impulse, is over 800, I think. I think it's like 850. So I decided to use the mothership, and that way we get the most out of the fuel that we've got. And what we can do then is we can fuel up this lander again, and then we can attempt to land it on the surface of this rather rocky, dangerous moon. We obviously sent a lander. Well, we didn't even send a lander. We sent our scanner to land on here not that long ago. And we landed in the ravines, which were nice and flat. However, I wanted to go for a different landing site, so here we are, touching down in the highlands. Originally, I thought that we were going to be landing in the Bleak Peaks. That's what Kerbal engineer Redux was telling me. And at the last second, we changed over to the highlands, and I was like, well, we must be incredibly close to the Bleak Peaks. So what we have done is we have got Errol Kerbin out yet again, and he is going to be performing all of his surface science experiments that we want him to get. And then I thought, let's go for a little bit of a wonder. Let's see if we can find those Bleak Peaks, and hopefully we don't have to go as far as Ziggy Kerbin went, but there you go, we can see about 5 meters away from the spacecraft, we have indeed reached a new biome. This was an incredibly well-targeted landing. I mean, I didn't mean to do this, but just the fact that we were that close made it incredibly easy to farm science from those 2 biomes, which was really nice. We didn't have to go on a long journey again like Ziggy Kerbin did, and of course, well, we saw what just happened to Ziggy Kerbin. He ended up in a rather bad position due to his bit of a run that he went on. So we are now going to, well, we have launched the lander yet again, and we are just going to perform a little bit of a maneuver so we can intersect the Kerbin-class mothership on our ascent. So basically, our burn that we are going to be doing to slow down to the same relative velocity as the mothership is also going to be the burn that circularizes us around the planet. I don't know if this is more efficient than actually just doing a circularization burn first or whatnot, but no, I decided, considering that was how this fell, I thought, well, we might as well do it. That's really cool. We have launched from the surface of the moon, and we have rendezvoused with the target almost immediately. So it was just a quick dock to get that lander back onto the mothership. And now what we're doing is we are putting the mothership back in low Hydrus orbit whilst we wait for our transfer window to Rho to come up again. So obviously the first half of this video, it has been all focused around Hydrus, and the reason why I kind of wanted to do that, I feel like I've been skipping over the planets a little bit too fast, and I thought, well, let's spend a long time around just one planet so you can kind of get a bit more of a view of it, see what it's about. We did a landing on the main planet, we did a landing on the moon, we did a bit of a run around, and yeah. But there we go, that is going to be the end of Kerbin 2's mission for the foreseeable future. Now it's probably a good time to recap what I did in the last livestream. So in the last livestream, we put up definitely not another gateway, which is actually our first space station in low road orbit, our first space station in this entire series. And it may look a little bit like a rather large interplanetary ship. It is not. It is going to be a space station that is capable of creating new spacecraft. So what we have on there, we have a USI workshop. We also have an extraplanetary launchpad at the end of the station, and using that we are able to create new spacecraft using material kits and specialized parts. Unfortunately, we are not going to be able to create those on site because, well, we've got no way of mining any of the parts that we need to create those, so we are going to have to ship those parts up. And that is what we have done with this new version of the Chimera spacecraft. We have filled that up with enough material kits and specialized parts to actually build our first spacecraft in space. Something that's going to be really exciting. I've never done anything like this before in Kerbal Space Program. I've never really used extraplanetary launchpads before, so this is something completely new to me. Here we have Boris II Kerbin somehow magically transporting himself inside the cargo bay of the Chimera. I'm not entirely sure how that happened. I think it may have been something to do with the fact that I switched the camera, but still that was a little bit peculiar. And one thing that actually I did do with the last Kerbal that we sent out was I did go around destroying all of the RCS blocks on this space station. I don't need them anymore now that the space station has been fully assembled. I try to get rid of as many redundant parts as I possibly can. That way, well, my game isn't lagging out completely when we actually get to the space station, and it just makes it a bit nicer for me. I don't have to be sitting through about 5 to 10 frames per second. We can actually get those frames up, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable to actually hang around this bit of a behemoth of a space station. But there we go. We can see we have finalized the build on SkySpy 1. So this is going to be the first telescope that we have sent. Actually, no, it's not. This is the second telescope that we have sent up in this series. However, the first one wasn't quite like this. The first one was from Research Bodies mod, which I have since removed considering it was very bugged with this game and it was just causing all kinds of issues, so I have removed that mod. But now what we're going to be doing is we are going to be pointing this telescope at different celestial bodies, and we are going to try and get some rather lovely, rather interesting shots of these bodies. But finally, we are going to be turning our focus to Gateway. Now, that is a planet we have not yet visited, and well, we are going to attempt to go there relatively soon. Now, what we are going to be spending probably most of the rest of this episode on is we are going to be industrializing Armstrong. So last episode, I didn't really do anything around Armstrong, which was kind of a nice breather considering I had been spending a lot of my time at Armstrong, but now we want to go back, and we do want to actually make that moon rather resourceful. So what we are going to be doing now is we are going to be sending over this module. So this module is going to be able to mine it's going to be able to mine, what are they called? Exotic minerals and rare metals. Now, exotic minerals and rare metals are incredibly valuable resources. So what we want to do with this is, at the moment, whilst we can't really produce anything on Armstrong, there are still a few more modules that I need to place down. Well, we are just going to mine Armstrong, and we are going to be sending some chimeras over to pick up the resources that we have mined and then send them back to road. And in doing that, we are going to make ourselves a rather large amount of money. It's going to be very nice. We're going to be able to fund a lot of extravagant missions with the funds that we are going to be gaining from those rare metals and exotic minerals. So what we have just landed now is another part of this mission. This one, however, is going to be mining metallic ore. And then finally, I decided, well, we weren't able to add to the planetary warehouse with those previous designs, so we are going to get another one of these flower miners. And what we're going to do is we are going to be able to put that metallic ore into the planetary warehouse, which means that we can use those resources wherever we want, wherever we please, all over Armstrong. It's going to be really useful. We can set up some kind of factory in a different location and actually process those raw materials that we are refining. There we go. We can see they are going into the planetary warehouse. And now what we are going to be doing is we are going to be joining another Chimera mission. This time, as I was mentioning before, what we are going to be doing is we are going to be recovering some of those rather valuable exotic minerals and rare metals. But first, we are going to have to make a quick pit stop because we are not going to have enough fuel in this spacecraft to actually return to road once we have filled that up with all of those valuable resources. So we are going to stop off at the original flower ore miner, and we are going to fill up our spacecraft with as much liquid fuel and oxidizer as we possibly can, because that is exactly what the original flower is producing. It is producing, well, it is extracting ore from the surface of Armstrong, and then it is turning that into valuable liquid fuel and oxidizer. But we are going to have to make a few modifications to the Chimera and to the flower ore miner. So we have got Matthew Kerbin out, and he is just going to, using the magic of Kerbal attachment system and Kerbal inventory system, attach some new parts onto these, well, spacecraft that we have. However, I do know that in the newest version of KSP, you can now, I think, kind of do this. I haven't actually played 1.11 yet, so I don't really know how it works, but yeah, no, it looks like a very cool update, and I'm very much looking forward to trying that out at some point in the future. Anyway, we have fueled up the Chimera, and now it is just a quick hop over to the rare metals extractor, well, rare metals and exotic minerals extractor, and we are going to be doing the exact same thing with Matthew Kerbin. He is going to be doing a little bit of engineering magic to connect the spacecraft up, and then we are just going to transfer those resources across to the Chimera spacecraft. Now it is fully laden up with a whole load of valuable resources. We can leave the surface of Armstrong, and we are going to attempt to return to road for the first time with a completely full cargo bay on a Chimera spacecraft. So, I have done the tests, I have run a few simulations, and it should work rather well. Nothing should go too terribly badly from what I have experienced in the past, and you can see we have made it safely through the atmosphere, and our parachutes have deployed this time, which is a lot better than what happened in the last time we sent down a Chimera. However, when the landing legs deploy, the parachutes decide to cut, so that's a little bit of a bumpy landing. We hit the ground at about 60 meters per second, but luckily, those very valuable resources did safely make it back home. So what we're going to do now is quickly come to the Space Center just to show you how much money I did actually make from that mission, over 500,000 funds. So now we are going to be joining the final launch of this episode. This is going to be definitely not another Gateway Building Supplies #1 launched on a medium reusable launch vehicle. However, this time we are going to be attempting to be reusing every single component of this spacecraft, of this space launch vehicle. However, we are not going to be trying to recovering the fairings quite yet. That will come maybe at a future date if I can really be bothered with doing something like that. However, I do just want to say quickly now, this shouldn't technically be the last launch or the last thing of this video. Unfortunately, my recording software kind of got a bit glitchy, got a bit buggy, and I lost a bit of footage for this episode. So in a live stream quite a while back, we actually sent a lander to Vasto, and that did arrive at Vasto. We did land successfully. And another thing that we are going to miss is actually the spacecraft that we build at DNAG again and sending it over to Armstrong. A bit of a shame, but oh well. Anyway, you can see we did perform a bit of a boost back burn with that first stage booster, and we landed quite close to the Space Center. Not Not exactly as close as I would like. I am hoping to eventually land pretty much on the launch pad. That would be really cool. But we were close enough to recover 98% of the funds of that booster. Now what we're going to be doing is we are going to be attempting to land the second stage. So I was a little bit silly in designing this second stage, and I forgot to attach any landing legs onto it. So this is going to be a little bit more difficult to set down on the surface, considering we are going to have to land on our engine. And of course, we ran out of fuel just as we were about to land. Luckily, we did touch down quite safely on the surface though, only losing a couple of those air brakes. Once again, recovering 98% of the funds for that stage, which is really nice to be able to recover that much. But anyway, we have got the third stage of this mission into, well, it has rendezvoused with definitely not another gateway. Basically, this is going to be chock full of building supplies. It has material kits and specialized parts, and what I have designed is a new flower miner that is going to be able to it's going to be able to mine ore as well as rare metals and exotic minerals, because they are all found in the gradual slopes. And then that way, rather than having to do a hop from the ore miner to the rare metals extractor, well, we can just go to one location and we don't have to be refueling and then doing some jumps all over Armstrong to get what we actually want, which is going to be great. It's going to save a lot of time, and to be honest, it wouldn't really save anything else other than time, so it just makes it a lot nicer to do these kind of missions, to actually go to Armstrong and recover all of those valuable materials. But anyway, now that we have filled up definitely not another gateway with the supplies needed to build that flower miner, which, as I mentioned before, we are not going to be able to see because of bad recording software. Oops. Well, we are going to be trying to send this back safely home. Now, I left this a little bit late, and you can see we have overrun the Space Center by quite a considerable margin. Oh well, we are still going to try and bring this down safely. But that is basically it. We had to use the parachutes in the end because we did run out of fuel. Anyway, that is going to be the end of this episode, and it is a new year, so happy new year, everyone. I have been Carnasa, and I will see you all later.